media to listen to what they captured. In fairness, I had a difficult time making out much, if anything, from what they captured. So what I think was captured by the TV cameras and the audio system may not totally reflect what was played here in the area of the well of the court. With that said, I think we have found the story that was played. We obviously don't know how long it was played. It does mention, it's sort of an introduction, sort of a summary that Dr. Martin MacNeill is on trial. He's charged with the murder of his wife. Later, a few seconds into it, I don't know how many seconds into it, there was mention of a bathtub. So that certainly could have come out. I didn't hear it. I think it was probably due to Your Honor's voice speaking over what was being recorded, and we were frantically trying to shut it down as well.
Can you play it on the record? Let's just play the first. Are you okay with the first 30 seconds? Do you think that that would accurately reflect what was played?
I'm confident it was not 30 seconds long.
So am I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was probably more 10 12 seconds.
Okay, let's for the record, let's just play the first 30 seconds. And can someone time that for me? Anyone have a? Okay.
See if we can put anyone in my.
A doctor accused of killing his wife, who was found dead in her bathtub. The jury heard critical testimony from his adult daughter, who believes her father is guilty, and the defense grilled her. Tough cross-examination. ABC's Aditi Roy has some more.
One day after testifying against...
I'm confident that was, I don't even think it went that far. But
Do you agree?
I do. I don't believe it got to the adult daughter part. If it did, that was it.
Okay, very good. Do you wish to be heard any further on your motion, or do you submit from the state anything further?
No, I would just say that certainly this was done inadvertently. It wasn't a mistake. I think the court took immediate action in directing us to shut it down, speaking over what was being played in the story. I think the court also took, action, the correct action in giving a curative instruction at the end of the testimony of Mr. Poirier. And there's certainly nothing new that the jury might have heard with respect to this case, and so I don't think any showing of prejudice could be made here.
Thank you. From the defense, anything further?
Nothing further.
I believe that an accurate record has been made as to the event itself. Mr. Poirier was on the stand during cross-examination. The media coverage was inadvertently played into the record from a computer behind the prosecution's table. That report has now been entered into the record. It consists of an introduction that the defendant, Martin MacNeill, is on trial for the murder of his wife. There is reference to Michelle MacNeill having been found in a bathtub, and the report goes on to reference cross-examination of Alexis MacNeill and states that she believes that the defendant is guilty. Even if the jury were to have heard all of that report as recorded, it would have presented no new information to them. The jury already knows that the defendant is on trial for the murder of his wife, Michelle MacNeill, that Michelle MacNeill was discovered in a bathtub, that Alexis MacNeill testified and was subjected to rigorous cross-examination, and that Alexis believes that the defendant committed the charged offense. It's not my view that the jury heard really any of the details. As soon as it began to play, again, I raised my voice in an effort to drown out what was happening, and the computer was shut down. I doubt that the jury heard any more than 10 to 15 seconds. I don't believe that the report got to the point of addressing Alexis MacNeill's testimony and cross-examination. In addition, the court gave a curative instruction detailing for the jury what constituted evidence, that the media report does not constitute evidence, and I ordered that they not consider it in any way, and I have every reason to believe that the jury will follow that instruction. For those reasons, the court denies the defendant's motion for mistrial. I agree with the state that no prejudice has been shown. To avoid this issue in the future, you've indicated to staff that they're not to stream any kind of media coverage during the course of the trial. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Very good. Are you ready to go?
We are.
Okay.
Your Honor, in light of the record that was made at the bench with Mr. Spencer and I with respect to the inmates this morning, is there a need for us to approach on the identity of this? Okay.
I don't think so. If we can just reference him as by inmate number.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. We're on the record in the matter of State of Utah versus Martin MacNeill. Mr. MacNeill is present with his counsel. The state's attorneys are present. The jury is now seated. The state may call its next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls inmate number 1.
Sir, would you stand in the witness stand? Please raise your right hand as best you can and be sworn.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in the case now pending before the court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you. If you'll be seated there and respond to counsel's questions.
Good morning, sir, or excuse me, good afternoon. Just for your information, for our purposes today in court, we're going to be referring to you as inmate number 1. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. Will you give us your age?
I'm 38.
38 years old. You're wearing a jumpsuit.
Yes.
And you're shackled.
Yes.
Are you currently incarcerated?
Yes.
And where are you incarcerated, sir?
Federal prison, Beaumont, Texas.
In Beaumont, Texas. You're being held at the Utah County Jail presently?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been incarcerated?
Since 2007.
2007. At some point, were you in Texarkana?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when that was?
June or July of 2010 until March of 2011.
Okay. And when I say Texarkana, I mean Texarkana Federal Correction Institute.
Yes.
Okay, so that was a prison.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you expect to be incarcerated?
Until January of 2016.
Okay, so approximately 9 to 10 years.
Yes, sir.
You committed an offense to place yourself in federal prison.
Yes, sir.
And what was that offense or
It
offenses?
was possession of cocaine base with the intent to distribute and possession of a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime.
Okay. And is that a felony?
Yes, it is.
Do you have any other felonies on your record?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know Martin MacNeill?
Yes, sir.
do you see Mr. MacNeill in the court today?
Yes, sir.
And where is he seated?
It's right there.
Is he wearing a light blue colored tie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where did you get to know Mr. MacNeill?
At Texarkana.
At the prison in
Yes, sir.
Texarkana? And for how long did you know Mr. MacNeill?
Approximately, probably about 6 months.
Okay. Can you describe how you met Martin MacNeill?
We were in the same class, and he sat a couple of chairs over from me.
What kind of class was that?
It was a A+ computer class.
Okay. Do you recall how often you went to that class and how long it was?
Every day from 7:30 until 2:30 in the afternoon.
Okay. So you attended that class with him.
Yeah.
Where were you housed in Texarkana?
In C unit.
C unit. Do you by chance know where Martin MacNeill was housed?
I think he was in G unit.
Okay.
On the other, it was on the other end. I'm not sure if it was G or one of the others. I think it was G unit.
Okay. So you weren't cellmates with Mr.
No.
MacNeill? Okay. How often would you say, you mentioned you saw him every day for some
Yes.
time? How long were you taking that class? Do you remember?
Until December
Of what year?
of 2010.
2010. Was the defendant in that class with you the entire time?
I think he graduated a little bit before December.
You would talk in class?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get to know him outside of class?
Yes, I would see him outside every now and then.
And when you say every now and then, let's talk about maybe how often and where you would see him.
Just in passing in general, in the lunch area and maybe outside.
Okay. Did you ever recreate with him?
Somewhat.
And when I use that word, how do you
Maybe walk outside or
walk
something.
outside?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that for exercise purpose?
Yes.
Okay. How often would you do that, do you believe?
Not that often, no.
Okay. How would you describe your relationship with Martin MacNeill? Were you friends or merely acquaintances, or?
I'd say acquaintances, maybe friends. I'd speak to him when I saw him. He'd speak to me when he saw me.
Did you get along with him?
Yes.
Okay. Did he have a nickname when he was in prison?
We pretty much called him Doc
And why was that?
because he was known as to be a doctor.
Okay. Did he ever provide you with any medical
Yeah.
advice or?
One time my foot was bothering me, and he kind of, gave me advice on what was wrong with it.
Okay. Did you at any point have any conversations with Mr. MacNeill about his wife
Yes.
and about the passing of his wife?
Yes.
Can you describe sort of how that came up?
Okay. I was in my housing unit one night. I was probably studying.
And this was in
And-
the C unit?
Yes, in C unit.
Okay.
And someone came to me and was like, come look at the TV real quick. So I came to the television area, and they said, do you recognize that guy on there? Is he in your computer class? And I said, yeah, that's Doc.
Okay. Let me ask you about that a little bit. Are these big screen TVs? How do you watch TV in a facility?
They have several TVs in a room, and you have to have your radio to hear the TVs.
When you say radio, what does that amount to?
Your headphones and your Walkman.
Okay. When you went into that area at the request of someone else, did you have your radio with you?
No.
Okay. What did you see?
I saw a picture of Mr. MacNeill, and I guess it was his wife.
Okay. Do you recall what the program was?
It was Nancy Grace.
Nancy Grace. Okay. Do you recall how long you were watching that?
I just saw it for a second. Once I saw that it was him, and I told the guys, I said, yeah, that's him, I went back to my living quarters.
Okay. Did you have any conversations with Doc or Mr. MacNeill about what you saw and what you were told?
Yes.
And when was that in relationship to seeing him on the TV screen?
It was the next morning at breakfast.
At breakfast? Okay. Can you tell us about that?
I saw him coming through the breakfast line, and I was through. I was getting ready to go on to class, and I walked up to him, and I said, hey, Doc, I said, did you see TV last night? And he said, no. And I said, well, they had you on TV. And he said, well, about what? He said, I had no idea. And I said, it was something about you may have killed your wife. And he said, don't say anything to anybody. I'll talk to you later about it. And we spoke later on outside.
Okay. And when you say later on outside, where was it outside that you talked?
It was in between the recreation yard and, or you go to education. It's like a square out there.
Okay. Are you certain that this was in the breakfast line, or maybe did you speak to him at class?
No, it wasn't in class. It was in
Okay.
breakfast when I spoke with him.
Okay. Did you in fact speak with him out in the rec yard then?
Yes.
Okay. Did he tell you anything more about the death of his wife?
At that point, he didn't. He just said that, he said, they're just doing that because my girlfriend is about to get out.
Okay. When he referenced his girlfriend, was that was an individual different from his wife?
Yes.
Okay. Did he ever tell you his girlfriend's name?
I think her name is Gypsy. I'm not sure what her last name was.
Okay. And you indicated that she was inside and about to get out?
Yes.
And what did you take that to mean?
She was also incarcerated.
Okay. Did you have any idea when she was going to be released?
No.
Okay. On that day, when you first talked in the rec yard, did he say anything else about the death of his wife?
No.
Okay. At some point later, did he talk to you again about that?
Yes.
Can you describe how that happened?
Yeah, it came on again, and it was a few weeks later that it came on, and I said, hey, Doc, did you catch it this time? And he said, no. And that's when he said, I want to get it right. He said, they can't prove anything, so I don't know why they keep running it on TV.
Speaking about his wife's death.
Yes.
Did you have any more conversations about his wife's death?
Yes.
Was it that day that you talked more?
No, it was later on.
Okay. Tell us about that.
One time I had saw him outside, and we just began to talk about it, and he, I want to be clear on what I'm saying. I want to make sure I'm saying it correct. He, we talked, and he just pretty much opened up about it.
Okay.
And he said that he gave her some Oxy, and he had gave her some sleeping pills, some kind of sleeping pills. Okay. I can't remember, but the reason we had talked about, he said the Oxy because we had talked about Oxys in class because I had been prescribed those before. And, you know, I told him about an accident I had, and we talked about the Oxy. But anyway, he said he gave her some Oxy and some sleeping pills, and then got her to get in the bathtub.
Did he say what he did next?
Later on, he just said he had to help her out. And I asked him what that was, and he said he held her head under the water for a little while.
Did he use the phrase, help her out?
Yes.
Okay. Did he ever describe, or did you ever ask him about why he killed his wife?
He said that she was in the way, that she wanted the house and the kids.
Did he ever speak to you about his wife having undergone plastic surgery at all?
Yes, he said she had had some kind of surgery, and that's why she was getting the medication.
Okay. Did he ever talk to you about his feelings with respect to whether or not authorities could prove his involvement?
Yeah, he said they couldn't prove that he, did anything.
Did you mentioned twice seeing a little bit of something on TV. Mm-hmm. The first time you indicated you didn't have your radio and just basically saw Doc's picture. Mm-hmm. The second time, what did you
Somebody
see?
just told me that it was on. I didn't see it.
You didn't see
I
it?
just asked him, did he see it? Because I heard that it was on again. I didn't see it though.
Okay. After that, or before that for that matter, did you see any other media like TV about Martin MacNeill?
No. Afterwards, a few weeks ago, I just saw his, face on the TV for a second, but they don't watch the programs that are the channel that he was on or whatever, so I just saw it in passing when they were turning the channel.
This was in Beaumont, Texas?
Yes.
Okay. What about, have you read anything with respect to Martin MacNeill?
No, they haven't seen any newspapers or magazines or anything.
Okay. Have you talked to anyone about his case? Any other inmates that informed you?
No.
Other than being asked to come see if this was the guy in your computer class?
No, that's it.
Were there rumors in prison that people would talk about a little bit?
Not really. Not to my knowledge,
Okay. Did you ever see Martin MacNeill exercising, anything like that?
Yes, he would work out. He was on the weight pile sometimes.
Okay. You mentioned that you walked with him.
Mm-hmm.
Did he have any difficulty walking?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Did he ever walk with a limp that you saw?
I didn't see it.
What about use a cane?
No.
Okay. Did you actually observe him lifting weights?
Yes.
What kind of weights, what kind of exercises would he do?
I'm not real sure. I would just see him, over under the weight pile. I never stopped over or anything.
Okay. You mentioned that Doc had a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware whether or not he would write his girlfriend?
Yes, he would write her in class quite often.
Did you ever see some of these letters?
I mean, I didn't read any of them, but I see him with them.
Okay. Did he ever talk about how he would write his girlfriend?
I mean, he would write her there in class,
Okay. When did you become aware of Doc's arrest for the murder of his wife?
It was probably in April of this year.
Okay. Can you describe the circumstances of that, where you were and kind of what happened?
I was in Beaumont, and an inmate came that was at Texarkana with us, came there, and he was telling me that Doc had gotten out and, asked me if I knew anything on him. I said, no, and he said, well, he got arrested for the murder of his wife. And I said, really?
You remember the name of this inmate?
I just remember his name was Bruce.
Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know Bruce from before?
Yes. I don't know his last name, though.
Okay. How did you know Bruce from before?
If I'm not mistaken, he was in the class with us for a little while.
Okay. So Bruce informed you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what happened? What'd you do next?
I talked to my family and my counselor about it, and just asked their advice on whether I should come forth with the information that I knew or not. And, based on that, I made a decision to get in touch with you all.
And how did you go about getting in touch with authorities?
I got my family to do it for me.
Okay. Any individual in particular?
My niece.
Your niece, and what's your niece's first name?
Raven.
Raven?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were you ultimately interviewed by authorities on this case?
By interview, you mean I spoke over the phone, yes.
Over the phone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you remember about how long that was after you met Bruce, or Bruce told you about this?
Probably about 2 weeks at the most.
Okay.
It may have been a little sooner.
Okay. You mentioned that you found out about this in Beaumont.
Mm-hmm.
Were you at some point in Louisiana?
Oh, I'm sorry. I found out about it in Louisiana, not Beaumont. I got transferred to Beaumont after that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I did say that.
So, do you recall when you were in Texarkana for a while?
Yes.
Texarkana.
Yes.
Do you remember where you were transferred after that?
California.
California.
Yes.
At some point, you got to Louisiana
Yes. Then I went to Louisiana.
after
And-
California?
Yes.
And where was that in Louisiana?
Oakdale.
Oakdale, Louisiana. Is that where Bruce was?
Yes, that's where Bruce was transferred to, and we were in the same unit.
Okay. After Oakdale in Louisiana, you were transferred to Beaumont.
Yes.
How come?
Because Bruce was.
Would you like to approach or not?
I'll withdraw the question for right now, Your Honor.
Questions withdrawn.
Your Honor, I'll pass the witness for now.
Thank you. You may cross.
Good afternoon. May I approach?
You may.
What's that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
What's been presented to the defense is plaintiff's notice of benefits offered or provided to jailhouse informants.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a section here titled Inmate Number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And you understand that we're referring to you in these proceedings.
Yes.
As Number 1. And this document, it indicates that inmate number 1's professed motivation for disclosing defendant's statements to police was, I just, to me, I don't want it to happen to his girlfriend because if he did it once, he'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an accurate statement of
Yes.
what your motivations were?
Yes, part of it.
What other motivations did you have?
Because if it happened to one of my family members, I would want someone to come forth too.
All right. Anything else?
No. I mean, it's just part of my rehabilitation is getting ready to come back into society. I want to be a changed person.
Mm-hmm.
I made some wrong decisions, and I'm just trying to do right.
Okay. And then it goes on and says that the state of Utah has no authority over federal inmates and have nothing to offer inmate number 1 in exchange for his cooperation in the investigation and his testimony at trial. There is no agreement to exchange inmate number 1's testimony for consideration from the state of Utah. Nothing has been given him and there are no promises outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true and correct?
That's true.
It says, if inmate number 1 were to request a recommendation from Investigator Robinson or the prosecution, that request would be honored.
Mm-hmm.
And to date, however, he has not made any request for any consideration.
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
So this disclosure here is completely accurate.
Yes.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm showing you an email dated May 9th of 2013. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And in that email, this is an email that you sent to your niece, Raven.
Mm-hmm.
And in this email, you say, hey, one of the guys that I met while I was in Texarkana came here yesterday and is in my unit.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talking and he mentioned Dr. Neil, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember the one that was in my computer class that was on Nancy Grace?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said the doc got out and was out for 2 months, and then they came and got him for the murder of his wife. Well, I know he did it because he told me about everything one day after I told him I saw it on Nancy Grace. That's what you said,
Mm-hmm.
right? You said we went outside and walked the track and he told me, anyway, if his case is not over, I could testify and tell them what I know and come home,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And so in your email to Raven, you were telling her that if you testify against them, you could come home,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what you believed, right?
Mm-hmm. At that time.
And And then later on at the bottom as well, you indicate that this might get me home, right?
That's true.
So in fact, you did have other motivations in relation to,
I mean, possibly. At that time, I didn't know, and I figured maybe, you know, doing the same thing, you know, I've already had made up my mind I was going to do it anyway. That's when I was talking to them. I said, well, if, you know, everything works out, it might work out to my benefit.
okay. But you didn't really think that it would?
I didn't know. I didn't know at the time.
And whether it did or not, you were still determined to do it? Because you thought it was the right thing to do?
Yes.
And you then subsequently, as you testified, had an interview with Investigator Robinson a couple weeks later?
Yes.
On May 29th of 2013, is that right? And in that interview, you endeavored to be truthful in what you relayed,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that interview, may I approach, Your Honor?
May.
Can you reach your hands up to be able to turn pages?
Yes.
Okay. And if you look about 3/4 of the way down in that interview, on page 2, there was a discussion about why Martin was in prison. Did Martin ever tell you why he was in prison?
He told me that he was in prison for writing prescriptions.
Okay. What you said in your interview was that he had not told you why he was in prison,
I
right?
mean, he alluded to that's why he was there.
Well, just look in on page 2 there. The question was asked, did Martin ever tell you why he was in prison? And your answer was, no, not exactly, right? And then the question was, so you didn't know why he was actually in Texarkana? And you answered, no, right? That's what you said in your interview, right?
Yes. Because he didn't come out and physically say, yes, I'm in there for writing prescriptions. He just let us assume that that's why he was there.
Yeah, so he didn't talk to you about it?
Yeah, he did. He sat right beside me in class and said it.
And would you turn over to page 9? And just review that page. And you said that to this day you don't know what he was in prison for?
No.
Okay, that's what you said in your interview? Okay.
That was yes, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
In your interview with Investigator Robinson, you also discussed the circumstances as you testified here today about seeing the Nancy Grace show, right? And other people coming to get you, right? And what you said in your interview was that on page 3 there, if you want to look at it, towards the bottom. so Mr. Robinson asked you the question, did he ever talk about his wife? Do you see that? Mm-hmm. And your answer was, yeah, he said that she had passed. Mm-hmm. And he told me a lot of stuff that was going on. He said that, him and his girlfriend got together before his wife passed, and he was trying to start a new relationship with his girlfriend back before, but his wife was so-called in the way, is what you said, right? Mm-hmm. All of this started because some guy saw his picture on Nancy Grace, right?
I'm not sure about that right there.
Isn't that what you said in your interview?
The conversation started because a guy saw him on Nancy Grace, not as affair.
Well, yeah. Right. So you're saying that the conversation started because
Yes.
of Nancy Grace, right? Mm-hmm. And you said, I think I was in bed that night when it was on, and a guy came in and ran to me and said, hey, isn't it that guy in the A+ class? Mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. That's what happened?
Yes.
So I came in there and looked, and they were flashing a picture of him, and I guess it was his wife on the TV. Mm-hmm. Right? And you said, I looked and said, yeah, that's Doc right there. Mm-hmm. That's what you said? Mm-hmm. And you said, what are they saying? Mm-hmm. Right? And you said, they said, man, they said he killed his wife. Right? Mm-hmm. And then you went on to report in your interview, I said, oh, that's Nancy Grace, and you really cannot believe that. Mm-hmm. So I went on back to the bunk, and the next morning I saw Doc at breakfast, right? Mm-hmm. And you said, hey, Doc, they're trying to say that you killed your wife, and it was on Nancy Grace. Mm-hmm. That's what you said in your interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's yes, right?
Yes.
And then in your interview, after you asked that question, this is what you said Martin replied. He said, don't say anything to anybody about this, and we will go out later and talk about it on the rec yard.
Yes.
That's what you said, right?
Yes.
So we went out later and talked about it on the rec yard. And you hadn't heard anybody else talking about the rumors about Mr. MacNeill at that point?
No, this was early, like I said, after it went on the TV, I went to bed, and then I woke up that morning. The first thing you do is you go to breakfast, and then you go to class, and I saw him at breakfast.
And then Mr. Robinson asked you, what kind of things did he tell you about the situation, right? Mm-hmm. And then you answered, well, it took a few days. It's like he would open up and tell me something every few days. Mm-hmm. He would see me and say, hey, let's go walking this evening on the track. Mm-hmm. That's what you said, right? Mm-hmm. He pretty much told me everything. He said she was in the way of his relationship, she wouldn't let go, and he wanted to move on, and she was trying to take the house and the kids and everything, and he wanted it a different way. So basically, and over time, he didn't tell me all of this in one day. He would just tell me bits and pieces. So finally, he just came out and said that she had some plastic surgery, I guess, trying to fix her up to be in comparison to his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. That's what you said, right? Mm-hmm. To, try to look good, a little bit nicer for him because she was older and, she had some plastic surgery and he was trying to drug her up on OxyContin and sleeping pills to get her to pass out and possibly die. That's what you said, right? Mm-hmm. So when you said oxy earlier, you were referring to OxyContin.
OxyContin and oxycodone is the same thing. Basically, one of them has Tylenol in it or acetaminophen, the other one doesn't. I've had both of them, so yeah, I might have said OxyContin or oxycodone, either one.
Well, what you said in your interview was OxyContin.
Yeah.
You never said anything in an interview about oxycodone, did you? You never described the medical differences between OxyContin and oxycodone.
It's basically the same thing. I know because I've taken them both.
Yeah. In your interview, you said that he told you that that he was trying to drug her up on OxyContin. That's what you said, right?
Okay. Well,
yes?
Yes, that's what I said.
And then Mr. Robinson asked you, did he say anything else? And you answered, yeah, if you would ask me something, I would probably remember. Mm-hmm. But he just said that, he was getting her out of the way. That's what you said, right?
Where is that at on the page?
On page 4.
I just want to read it. On page 4, where about?
Or just, about a third of the way down.
I don't see. Repeat the question, please.
May I approach?
Yeah, why don't you point it out, please?
Okay.
So you see the
Yes.
question was asked, did he say anything else? And you answered, I mean, yeah, if you would ask me something, I would probably remember. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And so then Mr. Robinson asked you, did he give you any discussion of what happened that morning before any of this started taking place? Anything like that? And you answered no, right?
Yes, I answered no.
And that was correct? That was truthful?
I really don't understand the question. It says, did he give you any discussion of what happened that morning before any of this started taking place? I mean, what morning are you speaking about? The morning that I saw him in the cafeteria, or?
Well, I wasn't there, so.
Okay, if referring to the morning of the cafeteria, no.
You were talking about immediately before that, as we just read, you were talking about Michelle's passing, right? Mm-hmm. And so then he asked you the question, if Mr. Robinson asked you the question, did he give you any discussion of what happened that morning?
No.
Referring to the morning of Michelle's passing, and you said no, right?
Not before the any of our conversations outside started, no.
And, but that wasn't what the question was here, though. The question was about what occurred on the morning of Michelle's passing.
Oh, well, maybe I just didn't understand that question at that time. I mean,
He goes on and he says, did you see the actual Nancy Grace program? Mm-hmm. You understood that question?
yes.
And you said no, right? Mm-hmm. And then he asked you the question, have you read any articles about this situation? Mm-hmm. You understood that question, right?
Yes,
And you said no.
that's correct.
And as I understood your testimony here today, that's still correct?
Yes.
And you still haven't seen Nancy Grace programs?
No.
You haven't seen any other news programs about the
No.
case? You don't know anything about the case other than what Mr. MacNeill told you?
No, one time my family tried to email me something and I didn't read it because I told them I didn't want it to cloud my image of what I knew about the situation, so.
So you told your family you didn't want to hear about it?
Yes.
And so then you go on and in this interview, Mr. Robinson says again, you haven't read any articles, right? And then you answered, well, I mean, I think I did read something about it. That's what you said, right? Mm-hmm. Did you misunderstand the question?
No.
So you had read something about it as of the date of this interview, right?
Not really. I'd seen some things about it, but I hadn't read anything about it.
And you went on to say that I think I did read something about it. I don't know if it was the newspaper or what. I'm not real sure. Mm-hmm. Right? And then he says, okay, 1 second. How did what you read in the newspaper compare with what he told you? Mm-hmm. That was the question he asked, right? Mm-hmm. And you answered, well, it was pretty much close to what he said. Mm-hmm. So at the date of your interview, you said that you'd read something in the newspaper or an article that you thought was pretty close to what he told you happened. Isn't that what you said?
Yes. Basically, I was saying that what he told me was, this right here. I really don't know exactly what all was in the paper or if I read anything. I can't really remember. It's been since 2010 when all of this started.
Yeah. When you had your interview this year, though, in May of 2013, that you were able to remember that what you had read in the article was pretty close to what you recalled Mr. MacNeill telling you. Isn't that a fair statement?
Okay.
Isn't that a fair statement from what you said?
Yes.
Okay. And so then on that same paragraph, you go on to explain that you say, so it was pretty close to what he said, like she had had some plastic surgery and he kept giving her bigger and bigger. See, I told Doc that, I had sometimes taken OxyContin. on the street, because when I first met him, because he was a doctor in prison, I said, well, Doc, you must be in here for writing those bogus scripts. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
You told the doc that he must be in there for writing those bogus scripts,
Yes,
right?
and he agreed.
Because you didn't know why
No.
he was there. Right? And then you go on to say, he kind of alluded to that's what he was in there for. Is what you said, right?
Yes.
I said, Doc, that's some good stuff. So he knew that I had taken OxyContin before. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
So like I said, when we were walking, he just kept on increasing her dosage and giving it to her because she did not know what she was taking. So she would pretty much take what he could give her.
What he would give her.
Well, you're right, thank you, what he would give her. So that's what you said in May of 2013
Yes.
that he reported, right?
Yes.
And you were saying that that's what Martin told you, right? And then you go on, he just gave her bigger and bigger doses and it wouldn't do the job, right? That's what you said. So he convinced her to take a bath and lay back and relax, right? That's what you said? And gave her pills and hoped she would pass out in there and drown. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And then you said, he said that he just kind of waited. And when she was kind of sedated and went under or started nodding out, he just kind of held her there for a little while. That's what you
Yes.
said he said, right?
Yes.
And then Mr. Robinson asked you, did he ever explain how he gave her the pills by chance, right? And you answered, he just said he gave them to her and she would take them because she did not know what she was taking,
Yes.
right? And then down just a little further, Mr. Robinson asked you, did he ever say that there was an investigation into his wife's death to you? You see that? And you answered, no, I brought it to him. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And he said, oh, they're just saying that because my girlfriend is about to get out,
Yes.
right? And that's consistent with what you said here today, right?
Yes.
And then you go on, but he's never, I'm sorry, then Mr. Robinson asked, but he's never talked about any kind of an investigation into his wife's death. That was the question, right?
Yes.
And you answered, no, he would never say that. And then I asked him, do you think they are going to get you? And he said, they haven't said anything to me yet. That's what he told you, right?
Yes.
And then down a little bit further, you again said, he never said that they were investigating anything,
Yes.
right?
Counsel, could we just stand and stretch for a minute? Why don't you stand up, stretch your legs for just a minute? Does anybody need a water? Raise your hand if you do. Looks like Juan, John. Why don't you bring a few out if you wish? Very good, thank you. Please be seated. Go ahead.
And so on page 5, they're continuing. Mr. Robinson then asked you the question, well, let me ask you, did he ever talk about his children and how they felt about what had happened? You see that question? Towards the bottom of page 5?
Okay, I see it.
And you answered, well, he just said about,
Hearsay.
I think it's impeachment.
Oh,
On the issue of children.
can I see it? I don't know what the answer is. Counsel, come on up.
We make a record, Your Honor, of that objection.
Yeah, the objection is sustained.
You've testified here today about Mr. MacNeill allegedly talking to you about his wife and kids, correct? Yes. And did Mr. MacNeill tell you that his wife wanted to take the kids away from him as well as the house?
Yes, he did, if they went through a divorce.
And did he tell you that he figured that if he killed her, that he would live happily ever after, and that it would be like a fairy tale relationship?
I mean, basically, that's what he was alluding to.
And that's what you told investigators?
Yes.
And then over on page 6, again asking about, did he ever say that it would be hard for anybody to find out how his wife died or how he killed? Do you recall being asked that question?
Yes.
And you answered, he said it would be hard to prove because they could say that she took all of that medicine because of the pain from having the plastic surgery, and she just kind of fixed her up a relaxing bath and, just accidentally nodded off in the tub.
Yes.
That's what you said, right?
Yes.
You turn over to page 7. And do you see the Investigator Robinson asked you there at the top of the page, did you ever notice him walking with a limp in prison at all?
Yes.
And you answered with a limp questioning? Mm-hmm. And then you said, I mean, he had a slow walk to him, but I can't remember if it was a limp or not.
Yes.
All right. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And then you go on, I know he kind of like the morning that I saw him, he looked bad and he was kind of slow that morning, but we always walked real slow. It was never speedy walking type. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And if you turn over to page 8, and down towards the bottom, Mr. Robinson asked you, okay, and you're feeling that coming forward right now, tell me why you think that it's important to you. You see that?
Okay.
And then you answered, to me, I don't want it to happen to his girlfriend, because if he did it once, he'll do it again.
Yes.
That's what you said, right? And so in this interview, you didn't mention anything about having any purpose that would benefit you in relation to your discussions, right? And you weren't planning anything that would benefit you?
No.
And you're still not planning anything that would
I
benefit
mean, I thought about it. Like I said in the beginning, it was an idea. Everybody thinks about that. Somebody in my situation would. But if it worked out, fine. If it didn't, fine.
So besides thinking about it, you didn't do anything else to pursue any benefit?
No.
If you turn over to page 10, maybe you have to look at the bottom of page 9 first, I'm sorry. Mr. Robinson asked you a question, all righty, if you think of anything else you feel like is important that I need to know. Do you see that question, bottom of page 9?
Okay.
And then you answered, not right off, like I say, everything is kind of cloudy. You see that?
You said at the bottom of page 10?
No, I'm sorry, bottom of page 9, and then your answer is on page 10.
Okay. I see the answer at the top, yes.
Okay.
It says, like I say, everything is kind of cloudy, but there is more after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you go on and say, like I say, everything is kind of cloudy. I listened to him, I talked to him, but when it came to that, I did not ask too many questions about it. That's what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. Robinson asked the question, let me just see if I just heard what you said. Did he tell you he gave her 4 OxyContin? I'm sorry, maybe I should go back and finish that first paragraph. Mm-hmm. And so back to, like I say, everything is cloudy. I listened to him, I talked to him, but when it came to that, I did not ask too many questions about it. Mm-hmm. I just listened to him, and it was like he would say, I gave her 4 OxyContin, and I would say, and that didn't do the job, Doc? It was like that. I did not ask too many questions. Mm-hmm. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And then Mr. Robinson asked you, let me just see if I just heard what you said. Did he tell you he gave her 4 OxyContin? See that question?
Yes.
And you answer, I mean, he'd say he loaded her up. He was giving her a bunch of them. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And you go on, I mean, he said he was giving her a bunch of OxyContin, and I was like, dang, because he knew, like I said, that I had taken OxyContin to give her some sleeping pills or Xanax. That's what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And down a little bit towards the bottom of the page, Mr. Robinson asked you, anything else that you can think of? Do you think that's it? And you again say, I mean, it's kind of foggy, right?
Yes.
Do you have access to the phone in federal prison?
Yes.
And you have a phone that's available for you to place calls out on,
Yes.
right? And then sometimes you also have the ability to make phone calls in your counselor's office or
Yes.
something like that. And the phone calls that you would make just on the regular lines are recorded.
Yes.
Right? Phone calls that would be made in like your counselor's office wouldn't be recorded?
No.
Okay. You also have the ability to get emails?
Yes.
And you've sent and received emails like we talked about in that
Yes.
first email, right?
Yes.
You may. Counsel, would you approach? Brief recess, ladies and gentlemen. Remember my admonition. It's your duty not to discuss any subject of the trial with each other or with anyone else. Don't form or express any opinion until the case is submitted to you. Do no research on your own. Avoid media coverage. Court's in recess.